Hello and welcome. I'm Jill Luther, Senior Director of Government Affairs for Charter Communications, also known as Spectrum. Thank you for joining this year's CNY Veterans Parade and Expo events. While the COVID-19 pandemic has altered all of our lives and upended traditional celebrations across the country, it's really important that we still join together on Veterans Day to pay tribute to the men and women who serve our country. The event may look a little bit different this year, but the goal remains the same: to recognize and honor the sacrifices of all who have served in our nation's military. Charter values the efficiency and the mission-oriented mindset that veterans bring to the job. These skills are a key part of helping us serve our customers. We are also very proud to employ nearly 10,000 veterans, almost 10% of our workforce, and we're committed to supporting our veterans in the communities that we serve and increasing employment opportunities for spouses. We are doing this through a variety of partnerships and training programs that support our efforts to recruit, train, and retain veterans as we build this highly skilled workforce. As the country adapted to a new normal during the COVID-19 pandemic, Charter remained steadfast in building strong connections with veterans and transitioning service members, reservists, members of the National Guard, and military spouses. This includes holding several military virtual career fairs to connect members of the military with charter recruiters. Through our broadband field technician apprenticeship program, employees are able to receive on-the-job training and gain an in-depth knowledge of the job as well as the industry at no cost to them. In addition, employees who graduate receive an industry-recognized broadband field technician certificate that they can then carry with them throughout their careers. Qualified veteran employees in the program get the added benefit of being able to obtain their GI Bill benefits while also receiving a paycheck for the work that they do here at Charter, helping to ensure a smoother transition into civilian life. Our veteran-focused business resource group brings together employees who have interests in veterans issues to focus on professional development, to look at recruiting talent. This group recently just launched a really fabulous mentorship program to help facilitate connections between our veterans employees. Over the next 6 months, roughly 100,000 service members will transition into the civilian workforce, and we are committed to help build on the talents developed during their military service and translate them into meaningful careers here at Charter. To all of our veterans, both in Central New York and across the country, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for the sacrifices that you've made to protect the freedoms that we all hold close to our hearts. Today, we are lucky to be joined by local veterans who play incredible, important roles in their communities supporting other veterans, two of which just happen to also represent the citizens of Central New York. After we hear from them, we'll be joined by 4 local area students who have some questions for our panelists. To introduce our speakers, I would then like to hand it over to my colleague, Alice Kim.
Thank you, Jill. As mentioned, my name is Alice Kim, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs at Charter Communications. We're pleased to be joined today by several special guests who will talk to you about their own experience serving in the military and the work they've done to help support our military members and veterans. We're lucky to be joined by a great group of speakers today, including Assemblyman Bill Magnarelli, Assemblywoman Pam Hunter, CNY Veterans Parade and Expo Grand Marshal Mark Burns, and Venicia DeRuz with Clear Path for Veterans. They have all dedicated their professional careers to supporting veterans, and we look forward to hearing from them. First, I'd like to introduce Assemblyman Bill Magnarelli. Assemblyman Magnarelli served in the U.S. Army Reserves for 6 years upon graduating from Syracuse University Law School and has represented the 129th Assembly District since 1998. During his terms in office, Assemblyman Magnarelli has focused his efforts on bringing more jobs to Central New York, lowering taxes, providing students a better education, improving access to healthcare, keeping our families safe, and of course, supporting veterans. We're so pleased to be able to partner with you again this year. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Assemblyman Magnarelli.
Well, how are you, everyone? And thank you very much, Alice. It's been a pleasure to work with Spectrum Communications, especially on the Veterans Day Parade. This would have been the 13th year in a row that we've had a Veterans Parade back in Syracuse. This year, however, we're going to do it virtually because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But I think it'll be worthwhile to tune in around noon on Saturday, this coming Saturday, to see what we have in store and to support our veterans here in Central New York. I got involved with the military back when I was a undergraduate student at Syracuse University by enrolling in the ROTC program. Upon graduation, I was commissioned as second lieutenant and went on to law school. And when I got out of law school, I was put into a U.S. Army Reserve unit here in Onondaga County. So I spent 6 years in the reserves. I did not have the opportunity of being sent overseas on at any point in that time, but I did get a chance to see a number of bases here on the East Coast of the United States. And I did learn what it was like to wear the uniform of a U.S. service person. And it brings home to me how important they are. And it's important that we take care of our veterans who have served and support the veterans or the people who are in the military now. I've become especially, I've recognized especially the contributions of our service men and women over my tenure in the New York State Assembly. I was privileged for a number of years to chair the Veterans Committee of the New York State Assembly and to work with veterans organizations across the state as to what we have to do to make sure that our veterans are taken care of and heard in New York State. So I want to make sure that that continues. That's why 13 years ago, because I saw that there was no veterans celebration in in Syracuse, New York, on Veterans Day, that we started the Veterans Day Parade. And that turned into the Veterans Day Parade and Expo, which we've been holding now. Like I said, this would have been our 13th year. And I look forward to having that again next year. We will do it again. It's important that our families here in Central New York come out on Veterans Day to support our veterans and to learn what they have given to our community. I remember as a youngster listening to my relatives in the backyard during the summertime talk about their experiences, many of them very humbly and not really wanting to say much about how they served in World War II or in the Korean War. I had relatives who served in the Battle of the Bulge on Iwo Jima, and my father served in the Aleutian Islands off of Alaska for a number of years during World War II. They served all over the world to keep us safe and to protect our democracy. I believe that every single American owes our veterans the respect for serving. And I believe that that's what we've been trying to do with the New York State Parade and Expo over the last 12 years. I hope that you will join me in definitely respecting our veterans during this Veterans Week or weekend, and make sure that when you see a veteran, just say, thank you for your service. It means a lot to them.
Thank you so much, Assemblyman Magnarelli. We're so pleased to be joined by Assemblywoman Pamela Hunter. Assemblywoman Hunter is an upstate New York native and a U.S. Army veteran, honorably discharged with a Commendation Medal and 2 Achievement Medals. She currently represents the 128th Assembly District, a position she's held since 2015. She is the only female veteran serving in the state legislature. Assemblywoman Hunter is passionate about building a better future for Central New York and believes that good jobs, improved schools, and increased public safety will enhance the quality of life and lead to stronger communities and greater success. Assemblywoman Hunter, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's always exciting to participate in the Veterans Weekend Expo. It's unfortunate that we're not able to do it this year in person, but we have to make sure we honor our veterans. And so I'm privileged to be able to be with the young people today and tell a little bit about my story. I graduated from high school when I was 17 years old and was in basic training and at my permanent duty station before my 18th birthday. I decided to enter the military because, at that time, I wasn't really ready for college and didn't really know what I wanted to do. So the Army was a great place for me to get my start. I did serve for 3 years active duty. It was really an interesting time because when I got out of the service, Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm had started, and that really changed the kind of focus of our country. We'd not really been in any active engagement and conflict, in a long time. I know we're on our 75th anniversary for World War II this year, but we definitely need to make sure that we're honoring the folks who've served since. There have been small engagements along the way in Panama and Grenada, where, it's interesting because someone I went to high school with actually, before I graduated in my senior year, he had been killed in the line of duty. And so I knew what I was getting into when I served, saying that, maybe that might happen to me or I may be in harm's way. But being a part of something bigger than myself, knowing that it was a duty and honor to be able to serve my country and fight for freedoms, I wanted to make sure I answered that call. Since being in the New York State Legislature, that's been an awesome privilege. I have been able to pass meaningful legislation for veterans, whether it's extending the statute of limitations for people affected by Agent Orange from the Vietnam War. And even now, I'm currently introducing a bill for the current service members if they're being affected by fire pits. I am a female veteran, the only one in the state legislature, as Alice mentioned, and I do chair the subcommittee for women veterans. It's really important because as women veterans are having conversations, we talk a lot about military sexual trauma in the military and being affected in any one of the branches, but we also talk about many other things that are important to women veterans, which encompasses daycare and unemployment and homelessness and making sure that we're providing all of the services necessary for our veterans. It's a proud day to be able to stand with my fellow veterans. We do appreciate when folks say thank you for your service. I look forward to hearing from the young people who are participating today. And just as we go through to Veterans Day, please just take an opportunity for yourself and for your family members to have those conversations about what it means to have served, to serve, and what it means to protect the freedoms that we also cherish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. Now I'd like to introduce Mark Burns, who serves as the 2020 Grand Marshal for the CNY Veterans Parade and Expo. Mr. Burns served 21 years in the U.S. Army and after retiring in 1997, returned to the Syracuse Army Recruiting Battalion. Mr. Burns is also the former CNY Veterans Parade and Expo president and is extremely active in various local veterans organizations. Mr. Burns, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Charter and Spectrum for what they do for our veterans as far as hiring. I had no idea they were that active in it, and I'll be getting more information and pass it on to the veterans groups I work with. I would also like to thank the Assemblyman Magnarelli for keeping the parade alive and well here in upstate New York. My Army story started back in 1976 when I graduated from high school and looking for a way to get out of upstate New York. I ended up flying down to Louisville, Kentucky to Fort Knox in the middle of a snowstorm, and I was under the mistaken impression that anything south of the Pennsylvania border was tropical. Boy, did I learn about that. We got to learn marksmanship. We got to learn basic first aid, all kinds of Army things. They taught us how to march in a straight line and how to follow orders, and that was all done in snowstorms. After that, after I graduated, became part of the team, I went on to my advanced training, as every soldier in any of the branches of the service gets additional training. I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia to learn how to repair and operate communications equipment. I did well enough in my classwork there that they invited me to stay on and serve as an instructor, actually, for 2 years. After the 2 years were up, I answered the orders to go to Europe. I went to Germany, spent 3 years there, ate way too much German food. Really enjoyed working with our German partners there in NATO. When I first got there, I had no car yet. I was still waiting on my family to come. So I got to learn how to cross-country ski just to get back and forth from where we were living back to where I worked at the radio site. By the time I got my license, it was great. I found out Germany was a lot like upstate New York. Got to tour castles and old cities and really look at the roots of the Western European civilization. Came back from Germany and went to Massachusetts in a post that's no longer there called Fort Devens. That was nice because we were near to Boston and I had time to go down and travel and learn some more of the American history there. While I was there, I got a letter in the mail selecting me to Army recruiting, which returned me back to upstate New York and a little bit of time in South Carolina. I spent the last couple of years wearing a uniform as a recruiter and supervising recruiters, and I retired with 21 years, and another great upstate New York company, Monroe Muffler Brake and Service, hired me to train their managers. They realized, much like Charter does, the value of the veterans and what they bring to the table. During the surge, during Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom, the Army asked me to come back as a contractor. I stayed on, eventually becoming my current position as Chief of Advertising and Public Affairs. I have been really fortunate to work with some great soldiers, some great veterans, some great elected representatives such as Pam and Bill. I've done some volunteering with the CNY Veterans Day Parade Committee, as you said, and as you mess up, you move up. So I ended up being president of the committee for a while. The most rewarding part of my military service is the service portion. Being able to develop my soldiers as I went up and down my department, the Army Civilians, to watch them grow and take on new challenges. I've been fortunate enough to be invited to serve on some great committees and work with some incredible people, like the people with the American Legion, working with Honor Flight and what they do. And most recently, the Onondaga County Executives Veterans Advisory Committee, as well as helping with the renovation of our Great War Memorial. Basically, my story is I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by great people and working in a great community in Central New York. So I really appreciate giving the opportunity to share my story. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is Benicia DeRuz with Clear Paths for Veterans, which serves as a hub of information, programs, and resources for veterans, military members, and their families living in upstate New York. Ms. DeRuz is a U.S. Navy veteran who served 7 years of active duty and now works as part of the PEER program at Clear Paths headquarters. Benicia, welcome.
Thank you so much, Alice. And I want to say thank you to the panelists as well as Spectrum and Assemblymember Hunter. I have been able to work with her when she hosts our Women Veterans Appreciation Day annually. This year, unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. But thank you to everyone. I am a Navy veteran, and I decided to join the military in 2006. I was off to Great Lakes, Illinois. It was in the midst of summer, and it was extremely hot. When I think of Illinois, I think of cold, but it was not what I expected. There were some days it was so hot that we weren't able to march. After leaving boot camp, I went on to my advanced training in Jacksonville, Florida. I chose the aviation support equipment technician, which is basically a mechanic. I wanted to choose a job that was challenging for me, and yes, it was challenging. After graduating advanced school, I went to my first duty station in 2007. It was the USS Harry S. Truman, an aircraft carrier. And in 2008, we deployed to the Mediterranean. After my deployment, we came back in 2008, the Christmas of 2008. And I was on that ship for 3 years. My rotation included 3 years on the ship and 4 years on shore duty. In 2010, I transferred from the ship to shore duty in Virginia Beach. Um, while I was on shore duty, I did do a deployment in Afghanistan for 6 months. I returned in 2011, and in 2013, I decided to get out of the service. While I'm in the service, I was able to complete my bachelor's degree in psychology. So I was ready to enter the civilian world. And in 2013, I worked as a relocation case manager for a local non-for-profit. I worked there for 18 months, and in 2014, I started my job at ClearPath for Veterans as a peer support manager. In that role, I covered 6 counties within central New York, and um, and I help veterans connect with resources within their communities. A lot of the veterans that I've worked with are older veterans, and some of them not aware of the benefits and resources that are available to them. So it is very humbling and so very empathetic to be able to help those veterans connect with resources, or they haven't had their benefits, whether it be health benefits or benefits from the state. And being able to make a difference in these veterans' lives it's very humbling. In 2016, ClearPath received a grant to start a peer support program in the Southern Tier. So in Binghamton, we have a satellite location, which I had the privilege to spearhead. It is still up and running as of right now, but I decided, since I commuted an hour and a half each way, I decided that I wanted to come back to headquarters. So in 2019, I came back to the main location in Chittenango, and I'm still working there as a peer support manager at this moment. One of the highlights of working at the Chittenango location is that I get to manage our Women's Proudly Served program, which is specific to women veterans. Being a woman veteran myself, I see the disconnect between women veterans. So being able to bridge that gap and help the women veterans connect with resources and connect with other women veterans and engage and have that camaraderie is also, it has been rewarding as well. It has been very challenging to connect with women veterans. I'm currently pursuing my MSW in my social work degree, my graduate degree, because I feel that I can do more to connect, and also being a clinician would help veterans who are needing mental health services to be able to relate to a veteran and be able to seek those services that some of them truly needs.
Great, thank you so much. Charter really values the work that your organization does to support veterans, active duty service members, and their families. Access to information and resources is critical, and in recognition of this critical services you provide to the military community, Charter is pleased to present this check in the amount of $2,500. We are thankful for the opportunity to show our appreciation for all that you do to advocate and enhance the lives of veterans and our families.
On behalf of ClearPath for Veterans, we'd love to say thank you for your generous offer, and this check will go to help veterans, family members, and their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Alice. And to all of our speakers, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to now introduce some special guests we have with us, some students from local area schools who have some questions for our esteemed panelists. I would like to welcome Aubrey Abdullah, Grady Pirano, and Madeline Kopp, who are all 5th grade students from Minoa Elementary School. We also have Jackson Query, a 6th grader from Pine Grove Elementary School. Welcome to all of our students. Our first question is going to be coming from Madeline. And we'll go ahead, Madeline, whenever you're ready.
Were you ever scared when you were in the military?
We'll point that to both of our assembly members to answer that.
Well, Madeline, that's a great question, and one that actually many people ask, especially young people. I think the biggest thing for me, because I was not in combat, but the biggest thing for me was I was really young when I started my career in the military. And so at 17 years old, most people are still either a junior or senior in high school, and I was, already graduated and out. And it was pretty scary, because I was a little bit homesick and didn't really know what to expect. And so every day it was something different, but being able to make sure I had connections with my family was really important.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Assemblyman Magnarelli.
Well, I guess I'd have to say I don't think I was really afraid of anything at the time that I spent in the military, except for the fact that I was learning things that I had never done before. So from that standpoint, you got to challenge yourself to do different things that weren't in my daily life. And so from that standpoint, there might be a little apprehension a few times. I remember going through some of the courses that I had to go through to become an officer in the Army, and they were challenging, let's say it that way. But I don't think I was ever afraid. Again, I was lucky enough to be in the States and not overseas, and definitely not in a war zone or anything like that. So I was lucky in that way.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Our next question is from Grady. Grady, go ahead when you're ready.
How many countries have you been to?
And how about we ask Assemblywoman Hunter and Grand Marshal Burns to answer this one for us?
I had the privilege actually to live in Germany. It was an interesting time because it was after the wall came down between East and West Germany. And, being in a country and the place where I was in Germany was interesting because many people didn't speak English, which was fine. I was in their country. I wouldn't expect them to speak English. But being a Black woman was interesting because on the border of East and West Germany, many people from East Germany had never seen Black people before. So that was definitely an interesting experience.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Mr. Burns, when you're ready.
Yes, I was also in Germany a little bit before the Assemblywoman, and I was there when the wall was still up. And I had the unique detail of running a communications section for a nuclear weapons depot. So we got to travel farther on the western side. I didn't get over to the border at all because we weren't allowed to because of our security clearances. But I've got to see a lot of our partner nations in NATO and travel. We've done, in addition to traveling overseas, we've done a lot of traveling stateside.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Burns. Okay, our third question is going to be from Aubrey. So Aubrey, whenever you're set, you can ask your question.
How can kids like me recognize and thank veterans in our community?
How about Venetia and Assemblyman Magnarelli can take this one for us?
Thank you for your question, Aubrey, and I think it's a great one. So for kids, I would say if you can volunteer at veterans events, that will give you an opportunity to interact with veterans and kind of hear their stories and be able to, relate to them. I think that's a good way that you can support veterans in your community.
Well, I think you have a perfect opportunity to support our veterans over Veterans Day and through the Veterans Parade and Expo as we do that again, hopefully next year, and watch what we do this year on our website. But I think what I said initially is just be mindful of veterans and what they've done for our country. They've served, and be aware that we owe them some honor and respect. And when you see a veteran and you know that person is a veteran, just tell them thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Our next question is from Jackson. Whenever you're ready, Jackson.
What made you want to serve?
Great question. What made you want to serve? Let's ask all of our participants to answer this one for us. Let's start with Mr. Roos.
When I decided to join the military, I was a college student and I was also working. So it was really challenging. Nobody in my family had ever served. And so when I started looking into joining the service, I really didn't know which branch to join. But my mom's friend's son was actually in the Navy, and he was a corpsman. And I asked her, I'm like, what do you think? And she said, um, it wouldn't hurt you. So I thought, okay, maybe I can serve my country as well as get the benefit of having money to go to school. So the educational benefit was also a perk for me to join.
Thank you. How about Mr. Burns?
Hi, that is a great question. Yeah, my father was served in World War II and my brother in Vietnam. So it was kind of a family legacy, but also I was looking for some of the benefits. We were coming out of a little bit of financial hardships in the late 70s and early 70s. So I really wanted to get out and see something beyond New York State at that time. I didn't know I'd end up back here, but yeah, it was a family legacy for me.
Thank you, Grand Marshal. And then we'll go to Assemblywoman Hunter.
Hi, Jackson. I thank you for your question. I think, for everyone, they're drawn to service for many different reasons. Some because they may not necessarily have other options that they're thinking about. But for me, as I had mentioned before, I started when I was really young at 17. And so, for me, it was a great foundation for the future. I knew that I wasn't interested in staying there for 20 years or 25 or to be a lifelong career, but I knew that it was going to be a good foundational stepping stone for me. I think that as I had gone through my military, time, it has given me great leadership skills, social skills, the ability to, decide, assess information and make a decision. Two things that are always very important for me is always being on time. That's really, really important, and being very organized. So if nothing else, the military definitely brings vital skills that you can use for the rest of your life, whether it's for personal or professional.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Assemblyman Magnarelli.
Well, I'm a little different from the others in this, from the standpoint that at the time I went to college, there was a thing called the draft. And young men were being drafted into the military during the Vietnam War. I felt there was an obligation and a responsibility to serve our country. I knew that once I graduated from college, I would have to enter the military. And I thought the best way to do so would be through ROTC and to become an officer. So that's what I did. I guess lucky for me, by the time I got done with my education, the Vietnam War had wound down to an end. And their need for men in the military was not as great, but I served my 6 years in the reserves.
Thank you so much to all of our students for asking such thoughtful questions. We can tell you guys really put a lot of thought into asking those, and we really appreciate that. And to our panelists, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your service. We truly appreciate you. Have a great Veterans Day.